Hello friends, welcome back to the Rainbow Moon Oracle. I'm Rayo and today we are continuing with our Tarot Discovery series, working on the Suit of Swords, the swords in the tarot. So today we're working on the Four of Swords. We're looking at the Four of Swords, its original meaning. I've got 3 cards for us today. So let's get started now with the keywords. So the keywords for the Four of Swords is rest, pause, sanctuary, recoup, stillness, timeout, stasis, restore, recuperation, relaxation, lots of R words here. We've got meditation, perspective, break, reevaluate, sanctuary, rejuvenation, and introspection. So lots of rest words for sure, right? In terms of numerology for the Four of Swords, of course, we got the 4 in there. So we have the stable and balance that comes with the 4. So you think of the 4 like 4 sides of a square, right? The 4 elements, stable and balanced energy. We get order and reason and logic out of the number 4. Patience and mental stability is really like the big, or trying to regain mental stability is really the big kind of overall theme here for the Four of Swords energy. So we have the concept of rest again. If you look at the major arcana, you always try and like tie in the major arcana into these more minor arcanas, the different suits here. And with the addition, adding up numbers, we get the Death card for 13. So that is also another type of rest, right? In terms of astrology, of course, we are in the suits, Suit of Swords, so that is our air suit, which is our Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. Lots of Libra energy in terms of rebalancing ourselves, getting balanced again. We have Gemini really contemplating the mind. And then in terms of like planets, we have Jupiter here for expansion of the mind. So for yes or no, it's going to be a maybe in this case. It'll kind of depend on the reading itself and where it's showing up. The Four Swords is showing up in the reading itself. So just kind of keep that in mind. So major elements of this card that you're going to see in the original Rider-Waite imagery and in the cards I pulled, this concept of like laying down or kind of an area of rest. We're really talking about that rest, rejuvenation. So it could be something like a bed. We see a crypt, the tomb that the soldier's laying on in the original Rider-Waite imagery. I have the kind of ground here. I've got this nest, lots of different imagery where somebody's laying down on different surfaces in this case. But somebody trying to take a rest, take a pause in this case. It's not always a comfortable place, but that means we're taking a pause. Usually we're not like trying to get that deep like sleep, that like deep healing sleep where we're taking a really long pause or really long. It's just a short pause. Usually it's kind of how the Four of Swords energy feels here. And then our swords showing up for that mental state, that 3 representing the 3 of Swords. We had 3 on the bottom in terms of the original Rider-Waite imagery and the 1 on the top. So the 3 of Swords coming in from the previous card, right? The pain of the 3 of Swords, and then the 1 trying to like bring in that like focus and mental clarity back in, trying to get that mental stability after the pain of the 3 of Swords. Trying to bring in that like purpose to the pain that we felt from the 3 of Swords energy, if that makes sense. So today I have 3 different cards. So in our original Rider-Waite imagery we'll talk about real quick, we see a soldier laying on a tomb and like in a crypt, in like a state of like rest or meditation with their hands kind of in that prayer position. We have 3 swords dangling over the top of this knight and then 1 sword on the bottom here. Those 3 of Swords, that kind of that pain, that battle that happened in the previous card, and then that 1 sword on the bottom, like I was saying, representing trying to bring in that mental clarity. And then we have the stained glass window in the top corner there that is really representing kind of, we have a mother and a child there, and that like the outer world as this knight is laying in like a crypt here and like really contemplating their life. First card I'm going to show, it comes from the Light Seers Tarot. I think this showed up in like a reading recently or something. I really like this one. So this one, we have the 4 of Swords. We have a female figure in this one, and we see the heart there, right? So showing the pain, the healing, the restitching that's kind of happening after the pain of the 3 of Swords. The swords kind of represented the jagged edges of the nest here. They're kind of like the prickle parts there, almost like needles, a little bit more so. But resting in this nest, taking that pause, taking that breath, taking that like, okay, we're just gonna sleep here, we're gonna rest for a minute, and then we'll get back into it, right? Get back into healing ourselves, restitching this heart energy back up, healing ourselves, and healing's hard work, right? We have to take a second to pause and just like breathe and get back into that energy, because healing things, healing something like generational trauma, just any trauma you might have in your life, anything that kind of comes to mind in those regards, healing itself does take a lot of energy as well. So you really need to take that time to rest in order for that to be able to be sustainable and keep going at that pace and that energy we want to be able to bring back in, right? So this card specifically really shows that rest period. She seems very peaceful. I use she because it looks like a female figure in this case, but a really peaceful card by comparison to the other two I have. So the next one comes from the Santa Muerte, and this one really gets that coffin imagery there, right? So we have these nails representing our swords here, and we have our skeletal figure hammering the nails into the coffin. So interesting imagery there, come to think of it, right? That final nail in the coffin, phrasing for sure, but the concept of that rest period coming in, that connection to the death card we see. Of course, Santa Muerte, very connected to death as a whole because of the way the tarot is in this deck specifically, connecting to the Day of the Dead and that imagery in the Santa Muerte. And the being able to take this pause, and it really pulls into the imagery of the old Rider Waite and old mythos, I guess, for like knights, really rich ones, of course, ones that had the money and stuff, getting their coffins built ahead of time if they were to die in battle. And this card kind of shows that energy, shows that thought process and that contemplation ahead of time, which I think is really, really interesting for this card, for Four of Swords. And this one really pulls in, how do I want to say this? It pulls in this interesting energy that I haven't quite seen in the other ones, where it's the break, the time out in a not quite scary way, but it's in a different way for sure, right? It does have that element of death to it that the original Rider Waite imagery has, versus like the one we just showed from the Lightseer's Tarot, right? The Lightseer's Tarot feels like a very calming card, that rest period for sure, the happy smile on the woman's face here, versus like looking at a coffin, looking at a tomb, looking at a crypt, really contemplating death and contemplating the battle and contemplating the challenges that we're going through, that those elements showing up with this card specifically in the Santa Muerte, which I think is really, really interesting to focus on as well. Moving on into the last card though, this comes from the Wildwood Tarot. I don't pull from this one terribly often because it has such unique energy, but this one a little bit different, right? Where it's our figure is laying on a grass and definitely doesn't seem to be the happiest, but they're not hurt either, right? We see these 4 arrows kind of looks like almost trapping our figure here, but they're not actually trapped. They have the 4 arrows surrounding them, but they are not held down by those arrows by any means. And then we have the butterfly at the top here, right? Showing that rejuvenation coming in, that like kind of chrysalis energy and coming back into the world, right? That chrysalis or cocoon energy that a butterfly, caterpillar into butterfly or moth has before they're kind of come back out into the world. That's another rest period. That's a Four of Swords energy, being in that cocoon, that chrysalis. So that energy is showing up here with the 4 arrows specifically, and this card is literally labeled rest, which I think is interesting. So we definitely have the element of battle here for this figure specifically, with those arrows looking like they were getting shot out with the arrows specifically, but they didn't get hurt. So they're taking the time to just like breathe for a second, rest before they maybe get back up and run away if that's what they were doing, or get back into battle if that's the case. We don't see any like armor specifically on this person, but what I think is interesting is they're barefoot and looks like they were kind of maybe fell during their journey potentially. So it's a really interesting look, and the energy of each card here that I pulled for the Four of Swords is a little little different, but more so different. I've seen very similar energies across different tarot decks, and then these ones are actually quite different, right? Versus like we have a really like peaceful rest with the first card. We have a like contemplating death, and this is a battle, this is a challenge, right? And then like actively like that quick moment of pause as you're kind of being like attacked, like that quick little like, okay, back into the foray, right? That's the energy of the last card here. So very, very different across all 3 cards here for our Four of Swords energy. But other meanings for the card for Four of Swords, we have restful retreat, release from stress, change for the better, pause and battle. Definitely a few of the cards are showing that energy, right? That pause and battle. So we get meditation, passivity, passivity. I think that's the right way to say it. Counseling, coping with pressures, with internal power. So all the stress we're under, all those anxieties and pressure from society, we're dealing with it with our own internal power. Take that second to pause and take a break and give a little self-care, so that way we can keep handling the pressures we're under, right? So calm before the storm, that was a really big energy that really made sense, right? It's like being in the eye of the storm, right? We went through this big period of storm and like turbulence and craziness going on, and we're in the eye of the storm. So we have a break, we have a pause right now, we have a second to breathe, and then the rest of the storm comes through, right, before we're completely out of it. So rest while you can. Good energy there, or good advice there in terms of the Four of Swords. Rest while you can. Conquer fears, isolation for soul searching. That is again that pause, that isolation coming in, solitude and security. Reevaluate life. It's a moment of peace after the Three of Swords, where we can take that time to contemplate things, think things over, be in meditation, really think about everything we've gone through and actually try and get meaning into that situation, pull meaning in. So this is that, again, that calm before the storm, before you're preparing for a new challenge. Again, coming into that second part of the storm here, we have that break, and then we get into our next set of challenges. So we're trying to gain wisdom, and it's a solution card. It's what they mean by a solution card in this case is like, okay, we're going through so much, right? We're going through so much anxiety and pain and craziness and turbulence, and we make sure to just take that second, pull it wherever you can, take that second to breathe, to pause, think through things, and then go back in. So that is the solution, right? Taking that pause, even if you don't seem like you have time, taking that pause is going to be super important, because it's going to allow you to think clearly and then actually make the best decision in the moment, versus trying to just make a decision on the fly through that time, right? If we take a second to actually like really think things through for a second, then we can actually make a very good decision despite all the stress and challenges and fast moving energy that we may be in at the time, okay? So contemplate and consolidate resources and make the best decision possible. That's the Four of Swords energy in the upright here. In the reverse, we get some of the same energy for sure, but it shows up in a little bit a different way, of course. The energy can be static or stuck when the Four of Swords is coming in reverse. We could be at a plateau, so we need to do something new for a new perspective in order to kind of move forward now again. So we get that in the energy of awakening, healing, returning to self, returning to positivity, returning to a challenge, but with a different mindset, a different perspective here. It could also be talking about burnout. It could be talking about different, like that internal strength again. So asking us to move forward, but not to be rash about the situation, because then that's when we're getting exhaustion, burnout, stagnation. We're crashing and burning without any rest. So burning that candle from both ends and just being completely obliterated in the end, right? So you have to force yourself to take a break. The Four of Swords, if it's coming in the reverse, and that might be part of the reading here, where it's like, no, you have to force yourself to take a break. You have to breathe. You have to take that second. Otherwise, you may be forced to against your will, and that's kind of what happened to me recently. Funny story. I'll get to it in a second, kind of towards the end here, but so take the time, force yourself to take a break. This is a very specific type of self-love that we're trying to give to ourselves, take care of ourselves, so that way we don't have a mental breakdown. We don't have that burnout, that stress, because we get stress and anxiety to the extreme with this card, potentially, if it's coming in the reverse. Like, our levels of stress and everything's at a really, really high level. That's really hard to handle, so it's telling us to take a break. That's when we're getting overstimulation, we're getting tired and exhausted. And then coming back around again, it could be like, okay, if you've been in this energy, a pause energy for a long time, where you're feeling stagnated, or like you've been paused too long, then it's time the break time's over. It's time to move forward. Let's go. But it'll just kind of depend on that reading, right? Any card showing up in the reverse has a very interesting kind of level, where it's too much of one or the other, right? Where it's like we're taking a pause, but we've been paused too long, so we're stagnated, or we haven't been taking a pause at all, listening to the advice of the card in the upright, so it's been the reverse and showing like the extremes of that energy. So I had a Four of Swords moment, it felt like, recently, because I was kind of going and working really, really hard, and I could hear the universe telling me I needed to take a break. I was getting those kind of signs and signals, but I wasn't feeling like I wasn't stressed and feeling like I needed to take a break, and then the universe forced me to take a break, unfortunately. So it's just what happens sometimes. So my advice to any of those watching this video is, if you're being told to take a break from the higher ups, in this case your guides or whatever is calling to you, you're getting signals and signs where it's like, take a break, take a pause, take that vacation, take a day off, listen to it, because it might be forced out of your hand. If not, it might happen against your will potentially, and then you're forced to take a break and just deal with the consequences at that point. So the universe is telling you to take a break, listen to it, okay? That's that Four of Swords energy here. But that's all I have for us today, friends. Hopefully this resonates. Hopefully it makes sense for you. Not really resonating in terms of how I'd say for like a tarot reading, of course, but there is certain points in our life where I feel like we're really tied in with the energy of a certain card. And I definitely felt the Four of Swords energy recently, so it almost feels like, as I've been going through with the Tarot Discovery series, I've been like living through moments of those cards in my own life as I'm talking about them to camera, as weird as that sounds. So we'll see what the Five of Swords has for us next time, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.